Hello guys, this is Adfid TV. We are going to briefly describe the history of third president of Uganda, whose name is Idi Amin Dada Ume. Idi Amin Dada Ume, born in 1925 and died in 2003 in Saudi Arabia, was a Ugandan military officer and politician who served as the third president of Uganda from 1971 to 1979. He ruled as a military dictator and is considered one of the most brutal despots in modern world history. Amin was born in Koboko, in what is now northwest Uganda, to Kakwa father and Rugabara mother. In 1946, he joined the King African Rifles, CAR, of the British Colonial Army as a cook. He rose to the rank of lieutenant, taking part in British action against Somali rebels and then the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya. Uganda gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1962, and Amin remained in the army, rising to the position of major and being appointed commander of the Uganda Army in 1965. He became aware that Ugandan President Milton Obote was planning to arrest him for misappropriating army funds, so he launched the 1971 Ugandan coup d'etat and declared himself president. During his year in power, Amin shifted from being a pro-Western ruler enjoying a considerable support from Israel to being backed by Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, Zaire's Mobutu Sese Seko, and the Soviet Union and Eastern Germany. In 1972, Amin expelled the Asians, a majority of whom were Indians Ugandans, leading India to sever diplomatic relations with his regime. In 1975, Amin became the chairman of the Organization of African Unity, a Pan-Africanist group designed to promote solidarity among African states. Uganda was a member of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights from 1977 to 1979. The United Kingdom blocked diplomatic relations with Uganda in 1977. And Amin declared that he had defeated the British and added the CBA to his title for conqueror of British Empire. As Amin rule progressed into late 1970s, there was increased unrest against his persecution of certain ethnic groups and political dissidents, along with Uganda's very poor international standing due to Amin's support for the terrorist hijackers in Operation Entebbe. He then attempted to annex Tanzania's Kagera region in 1978. The Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere ordered his troops to invade Uganda in response. Tanzanian army and labor forces successfully captured Kampala in 1979 and ousted Amin from power. Amin went into exile first in Libya and then Iraq and finally in Saudi Arabia, where he lived until his death in 2003. Amin's rule was characterized by rampant human rights abuses, including political repression, ethnic persecution, extrajudicial killings, as well as nepotism, corruption, and gross economic mismanagement. Internationally, observers and human rights groups estimate that between 100,000 to 500,000 people were killed under his regime. Let us discuss on early life of Idi Amin. Amin did not write an autobiography, and he did not authorize an official written account of his life. There are discrepancies regarding when and where he was born. Most biological sources claim that he was born in either Koboko or Kampala around 1925. Other unconfirmed sources state Amin's year of birth from as early as 1923, to as late in 1928, Amin Sansi Hussein has stated that his father was born in Kampala in 1928. According to Fred Guedeko, a researcher at Makerere University, Amin was the son of Andros Nyabile, who born at 1889 and died at 1976. Nyabile, a member of the Kakwa ethnic group, converted from Roman Catholicism to Islam in 1910 and changed his name to Amin Dada. He named his firstborn son after himself. Abandoned by his father at a young age, Idi Amin grew up with his mother family in Lulo farming town in northwestern Uganda. Gwedeko states that Amin's mother was Asa Ate, who born in 1904 and died in 1970. An ethnic Rugabara and a traditional herbalist who treated members of Uganda royalty. Among others, some sources have also described Amin as being of mixed Kakwa Nubian origin. Amin joined an Islamic school in Bombo in 1941. After a few years, he left the school with only 4th grade English language education and did odd jobs before being recruited to the army by a British colonial army officer. What is King African Life Force? Amin joined the British King African Life Force, which is known as CAR, in 1946 as an assistant cook, while at the same time receiving military training until 1947. In later life, he firstly claimed to have served in the Burma campaign of World War II. He was transferred to Kenya for infantry service as a private in 1947 and served in the 21st CAR Infantry Battalion in Gilgil, Kenya colony until 1949. That year, his unit was deployed to northern Kenya to fight against Somali rebels. In 1952, his brigade was deployed against the Mau Mau rebels in Kenya. He was promoted to corporal the same year, then to sergeant in 1953. In 1959, Amin was made a Fendi Class II, a warrant officer, the highest rank possible for black Africans in the colonial British military of that time. Amin returned to Uganda the same year and received a short service commission as lieutenant on 15 July 1961, becoming one of the first Ugandans to become commissioned officer. He was assigned to quell the cattle rustling between Uganda, Karamojong, and Kenya Turkana nomads. According to researcher Hogla Bennett Hansen, Amin's outlook, behavior, and strategies of communication were strongly influenced by his experiences in the colonial military. This included his direct and hands-on leadership style, which would eventually contribute to his popularity among certain parts of Uganda society. Rise in the Uganda Army. In 1962, following Uganda independence from the United Kingdom, Amin was promoted to captain and then in 1963 to major. He was appointed deputy commander of the army in 1964 and the following year to commander of the army. In 1970, he was promoted to a commander of all armed forces. Amin was illiterate. During his time in both the British and Uganda Army, at 1.93 meter, 60 feet 4 in tall and powerful build, he was the Ugandan light heavyweight boxing champion from 1951 to 1960. As well as a swimmer, Amin was also formidable rugby forward, although one officer said of him, Idi Amin is a splendid type and good rugby player, but virtually born from the neck up and needs things explained in word of one letter. In the 1950s, he played for Naira FC. There is frequent repeated urban myth that he was selected as a replacement by the East African Rugby Union team for their 1955 tour match against the British Lions. Amin, however, does not appear in a team photograph or on the official team list. Following conversation with a colleague in the military, Amin became a keen fan of F's, an affection that remained for the rest of his life. In 1965, Prime Minister Milton Obote and Amin were implicated in a deal to smuggle ivory and gold into Uganda from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The deal, as later arranged by General Nicholas Olenga, an associate of the former Congolese leader Patrice Lumumba, was a part of an arrangement to help troops opposed to the Congolese government trade ivory and gold for arms supplies secretly smuggled to them by Amin. In 1966, the Ugandan parliament demanded an investigation. Obote imposed a new constitution abolishing the ceremonial presidency held by Kabaka King Mutesa II of Buganda and declared himself executive president. He promoted Amin to colonel and army commander. Amin led an attack on the Kabaka palace and forced Mutesa into exile to the United Kingdom, where he remained until his death in 1969. Amin began recruiting members of Kakwa, Lugabara, South Sudanese, and other ethnic groups from the West Nile area bordering South Sudan. The South Sudanese had been residents in Uganda since the early 20th century, having come from South Sudan to serve the colonial army. Many African ethnic groups in northern Uganda inhabit both Uganda and South Sudan. Allegation persists that Amin army consisted mainly of South Sudanese soldiers, says of power to Amin. Eventually, a rift developed between Amin and Obote, exacerbated by the support Amin had built within the Uganda army by recruiting from the West Nile region. His involvement in operations to support the rebellion in southern Sudan and an attempt on Obote's life in 1969. In October 1970, Obote took control of the armed forces, reducing Amin from his month-old post of commander of Volo Armed Forces to that of the commander of the Ugandan army. Having learned that Obote was planning to arrest him for misappropriating army funds, Amin seized power in a military coup on 25 January 1971, while Obote was attending a Commonwealth Summit meeting in Singapore. Troops loyal to Amin sealed off Entebbe International Airport and took Kampala. Soldiers surrounded Obote residence and blocked mayor roads. A broadcast on Radio Uganda accused Obote government of corruption and a preferential treatment of the Lango region. Chilling crowds were reported in a street of Kampala after the radio broadcast. Amin, who presented himself a soldier, not a politician, declared that the military government would remain only as caretaker regime until new election, which would be held when the situation was normalized. He promised to release all politician prisoners. Amin held a state funeral in April 1971 for Edward Mutesa, former King Kabaka of Buganda and a president who had died in exile. Amin's presidency. On 2 February 1971, 1 week after the coup, Amin declared himself President of Uganda, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Uganda Army Chief of Staff and Chief of Air Staff. He suspended certain provisions of the Ugandan Constitution and soon instituted an advisory defense council composed of military officers. With himself as the chairman, Amin placed the military tribunals above the system of civil law, appointed soldiers to top government posts and the government-owned corporations, and informed the newly inducted civilian cabinet minister that they would be subject to military courtesy. Amin ruled by decree. Over the course of his rule, he issued approximately 30 decrees. Amin renamed the presidential lodge in Kampala from Government House to the Command Post. He disbanded the General Service Unit (GSU) intelligence agency created by the previous government and replaced it with the State Research Bureau (CRB). CRB, headquartered at Kampala suburbs of Nakasero, became the scene of torture and capital punishment over the next few years. Other agencies used to persecute dissenters include the military police and the public safety unit. Ladies and gentlemen, that is briefly what took place on a regime of Idi Amin Dada Ome. See you soon. This is Adifit TV.